Hello YouTube, my name is Isabella and welcome back to my channel, Stubbornly Bookish. Today I'm going to be discussing the books I read in July. One of these days I will actually have my wrap-ups on time. I'm actually really happy with my reading in terms of quantity. For once in my wrap-ups, I managed to read 9 books, and I'm happy to discuss a lot of these books with you today. Also, I've been attempting to fix my audio. I've been noticing recently my audio has been incredibly quiet, and I think it makes me come off as a lot more quiet than I am. Actually, as a person, I'm not quiet, but then I'm watching my videos back and I seem kind of mild-mannered, meek and stuff. So I'm trying to fix the audio. Okay, so the first book I read in July, I started off with a bang, and that's On the Come Up by Angie Thomas. This is the very anticipated second book from Angie. It follows a young girl named Bree who's 16 years old and really wants to be a rapper. Her father was a very famous underground rapper, but he was actually shot and killed when she was a young girl, and she deals with the pressure of that and also the pressure of wanting to fix her family's lot in life. They are impoverished. Her mom loses her job in the beginning of this story, and they're really struggling, and it just focuses on a lot of great topics and themes, and I adored this book. I loved all of our characters. Bree especially, she is so flawed. She makes a ton of mistakes in here. She is wrong a lot of the times, but she learns from her mistakes. She gets challenged. She grows a lot in here and learns that maybe she doesn't know everything about the world and it's okay to ask for help. And like, just her character progression and arc was amazing. All the side characters in here were great too. Everyone was super vibrant and interesting and also flawed. Nobody was like perfect or near perfect in this story, and I loved it. I loved what Angie had to say about themes in this story. She really tackles racism at a societal level and how systemic racism really affects and chooses who is on the bottom, and how people, specifically Black people, aren't really able to rise up and get past their poverty. It was just done with so much subtlety and nuance, and her writing is just phenomenal. I thought On the Come Up is honestly a gem. I definitely suggest you pick it up and give it a try. I can't wait to see what Angie Thomas writes next. She has officially cemented herself as a favorite author of mine. I'll pick up anything she writes. This was amazing. And now a book I have been kind of not thrilled about actually having to review is The Miseducation of Cameron Post by Emily M. Danforth. At the beginning of our novel, Cameron Post discovers that her parents have died in a car crash, and she's actually relieved by it because hours before they had died, she found herself kissing a girl, and she's relieved that she never has to tell them. Because her parents die, her aunt comes and lives with her and her grandmother, and then a lot of things happen. This book was a struggle. Just to give you a warning, I would like to give a content warning for conversion therapy, homophobia, all those sorts of things. I appreciated the story in theory and where it ended up, but I basically hated the process of reading this book. Not because of the themes or that things were difficult, but I found the writing in here to be incredibly difficult to get through. I found it to be super stiff and run on and a little stunted, and I didn't jive with the writing at all in this story. So frankly, I didn't really enjoy the book that much. I really appreciated the ending and the growth that Cameron finally exhibits. We get very little growth of Cameron, very little emotion from Cameron. She just kind of is listless, but you don't really get to know her. And this is like 450 pages of a contemporary story from her perspective. You should know Cameron very well by the end of it. I'm disappointed because I was so looking forward to this. I think I gave this 2.5 out of 5 stars. It wasn't the book I was expecting. The next book I read was Foundryside by Robert Jackson Bennett. This is set in this world in which there are, I guess, merchant houses that have their own complexes within this city, and then everyone else kind of lives in these slums. Our main character is one of the people who lives in the slums, but she's a thief with a magical ability, and then she is given the opportunity to go on this huge heist and steal this really big artifact, and that's kind of where the story kicks off. I thought this was a very solid introduction. The world itself, the city, is so interesting, and just that setup was pretty cool. I thought the magic that gets involved and explained was very interesting, unique, and inventive. I loved our main character's magical ability. She essentially has the ability to read objects when she puts her hands on something. I found it to be a little info dumpy in the beginning, but I kind of expect that when it comes to fantasy in general. The characters themselves I thought were really great. We had some characters that could have been incredibly stereotypical in this novel. Like we have a thief, a mad scientist, a general who kind of hates what's happening in society, but the way the characters went, I thought, was done very well, and I'm happy with that. And I'm excited to see where this goes. I know there's an FF relationship that is going to develop in the later books. I really had fun with this. I might actually sit down and try and do a proper review for this when I get some time, probably in September. But I really enjoyed this. I'm very much looking forward to the sequel. Gave this 4 out of 5 stars. I didn't mention anything about the plot. The plot was fun. Heists are always fun. So my first read for the Booktubeathon was Stardust by Neil Gaiman. This book follows a boy named Tristram Thorn. I find his name incredibly difficult to say, who lives in this little town on the edge or the precipice of the Fae world, and he really wants to win over the heart of this beautiful young girl in his village. So he decides that he's going to trek into the world of the Fae and track down this star that he saw falling down from the sky. The star is not actually a star. She's essentially this sentient human-appearing woman, and things kind of go poorly from there. I do agree with a lot of people who say that this is written like a fairy tale for adults. It has a very whimsical quality to it, but it is kind of dark. I found myself enjoying the overall plot of the story. The romance I wasn't really sold on until late into the story, which it's a fairly short story, and I really appreciated the end. I'm actually very interested in watching the movie. I just didn't have the time to watch the adaptation during the Booktubeathon. I think I gave this 3.5 out of 5 stars. Really looking forward to watching the movie. And in the movie they name him Tristan because they know Tristram is a stupid name. The next book I read was Empress of a Thousand Skies by Rhoda Belza. This is a young adult sci-fi space opera-y story, and it follows 2 main characters. One of our main characters is the crown princess. She's actually set to be empress on her 16th birthday. The other main character is a boy who's very famous from this sort of reality TV show series, and everything goes wrong when there is an attempt on the princess's life, and everyone believes she's dead, and the boy, the famous boy, is actually blamed for her death, and like political things go from there. There was a lot of things that I liked about this story. I thought it was very action-packed and a very quick story. Great for a readathon, by the way. Our main character's Asian witch is Own Voice's representation, and the series as a whole is pretty diverse. I liked the topics that it tackled. It talked about institutionalized racism and xenophobia, dashed with a bunch of corruption and some discrimination in there. I found the plot to be fun, but also predictable at times. There are a lot of story beats that I caught on to. I also got frustrated a bit with the writing. The prose itself was fine, nothing particularly stuck out to me, but basically at the end of each chapter there's kind of cliffhanger after cliffhanger, and while that keeps you reading, I also started to get frustrated because I just wanted a moment in time to breathe and to reset. A lot of the reveals in here were really predictable, so I don't know when I plan on picking up the sequel. I do think I will finish this series though. I just have to get my hands on the sequel. was decent. I gave this 3.5 out of 5 stars. I also managed to finish Beneath the Sugar Sky by Seanan McGuire. This is the third book in the Wayward Children series, and it picks up kind of after the events of Every Heart a Doorway. And I guess I can't talk too much about the plot in here, other than our characters kind of go on a quest. My review for this one honestly is pretty much on par with the other 2 books. I really liked the whimsical yet also slightly dark nature of these stories, especially set in a Candyland, which I thought was interesting. I really liked spending time with these characters. I'm glad we got to see some characters from previous iterations. This one, there wasn't a lot of breathing room. They were on to the next thing and the next part of the quest, and there was no kind of quiet time or moments to kind of sit with the themes and think about the story, which was a bit of a bummer. And also, I found the fat rep in here to be a little on the nose and heavy-handed. I get it, I just wanted a little bit more nuance and expected a bit more nuance with Seanan McGuire's writing. Every other aspect of the writing I did enjoy. Her prose is amazing. I love these dark, twisted little fairy tales. I'm excited to read the next one, which I just purchased. I gave this one 4 out of 5 stars. It's my least favorite in the series, but I did still enjoy it. Next thing I read was Saga Volume 3. I have been slowly making my way through this series. This is the 3rd volume, obviously, and I super enjoyed this one. I think by far this was my favorite iteration in the series. I gave this one 5 stars. I find these graphic novels difficult to discuss because they are very short. I am liking the character development in here. There are some things that like hurt my heart already, which makes me nervous for the later volumes. And I really liked the way the plot is diverging and how certain characters have come together after being apart and seeing their interactions for the first time. And the very end had me like needing to read the next volume, which I do plan on doing in the month of August. But I really enjoyed this. The second last thing I read was My Lady Jane by Cynthia Hand, Brody Ashton, and Jody Meadows. This is a young adult alternate historical fiction retelling of Lady Jane Grey, the 9-Day Queen, who actually gets beheaded in true history. But in this one, things just go off the rail. I thought the narration was great in terms of the audiobook narrator, but also the narration of like with the writing style was great. The humor in here was so good and it seemed so seamless. I'm so impressed that 3 people wrote this story. I know there are 3 different perspectives, but it works so well. I'm thoroughly impressed by this story. I thought the plot was ridiculous and fun. There's a romance in here that was also really fun. This book was just a fun, wacky time. I laughed out loud a couple of times. I was smiling constantly while listening to this audiobook. It was a great time. My only complaint was it felt a little long at times. I wanted things to be shortened up a little bit, but I gave this 4.5 out of 5 stars. I definitely recommend it. I didn't know if I would like this book at all, and I'm so thrilled that I've loved it. It was so good. And the last thing I read, this was not a booktubeathon read, was The Kiss Quotient by Helen Hoang. This is a very popular adult romance. This follows Stella, who has been really struggling with dating and specifically sex, so she actually hires a male escort to teach her all that he knows. Obviously there's a romance in here, so feelings start to develop, and this I did enjoy. Had a few problems with it though, so I didn't love it as much as I hoped to. For starters, I did really appreciate the rep in here. There's Own Voices representation for autism. Our female main character has autism, and our male main character named Michael is Vietnamese, which is also Own Voices. I really liked the chemistry between our 2 leads. That was great. I just struggled with the fact that there was a lack of communication and other aspects of their relationship. So many things could have been solved so much sooner if they just communicated, and that's kind of like a to me when romance is concerned. I think your story isn't very strong if things can just be solved by the two leads talking about it. I also hated that our male escort had a tragic backstory and that's why he was a prostitute. I really liked Stella as a lead though. I liked seeing the way she thought through things and how she just saw the world. I really appreciated learning from her, and I also appreciated her growth in here. She started to learn what she wanted and speaking up for what she wanted, which I'm always there for. So I did end up giving it a 3.75 out of 5 stars. I enjoyed it. I do plan on picking up the companion to this, but wasn't quite the book I was hoping it was going to be. So that is it for all the books that I read in July. Please let me know down in the comments below if you have any thoughts on any of the books I read. If you could recommend me any books that are sort of alternative historical fiction, I think that's what I'm gonna like when it comes to historical fiction. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and I will see you again very soon. Bye.